I held the DNA results in my trembling hands, staring at a truth I had buried for 20 years. My daughter Emily
You
had
still
spent
haven't
half
told
her
me the
life
truth
believing
about
I
that
lied
night.
about who her father was.
I've
She
told you
built her
everything
anger
I
on that
remember.
lie, and I let her. But today,
Forgive me.
one envelope was
But
about to
after
destroy
all these
everything she
years,
thought
you
she knew.
deserve to know the truth
The
about what
truth I
happened.
protected for 2 decades didn't just clear my name. It shattered hers. And the worst part, I was the one who chose this silence. If this story touches you even a little, don't keep it to yourself. Like, subscribe, and tell me, have you ever believed something for years only to find out it wasn't true? And where are you watching from right now? I'd really love to know. I live in a quiet neighborhood just outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of place where nothing really changes. Same trimmed lawns, same neighbors waving from porches, same routines that make the days blur together. At 70, routine becomes your anchor. It's what keeps you from drifting too far into your own thoughts. But lately, even that hasn't been enough. Emily hasn't called me in 3 months. Not that I expected her to. We've never really had that kind of relationship, not in the past 20 years. Not since the day everything fell apart. Still, there are moments, small quiet ones, when I catch myself staring at my phone, wondering if today might be different. Wondering if she might finally decide to hear me out. She never does. The last time I saw her was at a small family gathering my sister's birthday. I remember standing in the kitchen holding a plate I wasn't hungry enough to eat from watching Emily across the room. She looked just like she did at 20. Same determined jawline, same guarded eyes. Except now there was something colder behind them. Something final. She noticed me looking. For a second, I thought she might come over. But instead, she turned away. As if I were a stranger. As if I didn't spend years raising her, holding her, when she cried, teaching her how to ride a bike on the cracked pavement in front of our old house. That's what 20 years of silence does. It doesn't just create distance, it rewrites history. Emily believes I lied to her. Not just once, but about something that defined her entire life. Her father. To her, Daniel Thornton was everything a father should be. Steady, respected, dependable. The kind of man who never missed a school event, who fixed things around the house without being asked, who knew how to make a child feel safe. And for a long time, he was that man. But somewhere along the way, something changed. I still remember the first time I noticed it. Emily must have been about 16. Daniel had started coming home later than usual. His voice, once calm and patient, had grown sharp and impatient over small things. He'd look at me sometimes, like he was trying to solve a puzzle, like there was something about me he no longer understood. I asked him about it once. "Is everything okay?" I said, standing in the doorway of our bedroom. He didn't answer right away. Just kept folding his shirt too neatly, too carefully. "Do you ever feel like you don't really know someone?" he finally said. That question stayed with me longer than any accusation could have. At the time, I didn't understand what he meant. I thought it was stress, work, midlife doubt, the kind of things people go through and eventually move past. I was wrong. Emily didn't see any of that back then. To her, Daniel was still the same father. The same man who showed up, who smiled, who told her everything was fine. Maybe that's why she believed him so easily when everything finally came crashing down. I don't blame her for that. What I blame myself for is what I didn't say. There were moments, so many moments, when I could have told her the truth. When I could have sat her down, looked her in the eyes, and explained everything before someone else twisted it into something unrecognizable. But I didn't. I told myself I was protecting her. I told myself she didn't need to carry that kind of burden. I told myself there would be a better time. There never is. The day Emily stopped trusting me wasn't loud. It wasn't some dramatic explosion like people imagine. It was quiet, subtle, a shift in the way she looked at me, like she was seeing me for the first time and deciding she didn't like what she saw. It started with questions, small ones at first. "Mom, did you ever know someone named Michael Carter?" I remember freezing for a second. Just a second, but long enough. "Yes," I said carefully. "He was a coworker. A long time ago." She nodded, but there was something behind that nod, something searching. Then came the next question. "Were you close?" I smiled, or at least I tried to. "We worked together, that's all." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the truth either. That's the thing about half-truths. They sound safe, they feel harmless, but they leave just enough space for doubt to grow. And once doubt takes root, it doesn't need much to spread. A few days later, Daniel barely spoke to me. A week after that, he started sleeping in the guest room. And Emily? She watched everything. She didn't say much, but I could feel it the way she was piecing things together in her head. The way she was starting to believe there was something I wasn't telling her. She wasn't wrong, but she didn't know why. Even now, sitting in my living room with that envelope on the table in front of me, I can still see her face from back then. Confused, hurt, trying to understand something no one was explaining to her. That's the part that breaks me. Not the anger she carries now. Not the years of silence. But the moment it all started. The moment she began building her life on a version of the truth that was never really true. I reach for the envelope again, my fingers brushing over the edge. DNA results. 20 years too late. Or maybe right on time. Because for the first time in a long time, I feel something I haven't let myself feel before. Not fear. Not guilt. But the possibility that everything might finally come out. The whole truth. Not the one Emily believes. Not the one Daniel left behind. But mine. And I don't know if that truth will bring her back to me or push her further away than ever. But I do know one thing. I can't stay silent anymore. Not after this. Not after everything. Because sometimes the truth doesn't just set you free. Sometimes it tears everything apart first. When I think back to those years before everything began to unravel, I always return to one particular memory. It was a Sunday morning, the kind of slow golden morning where sunlight filters through the kitchen curtains and everything feels steady, safe. Emily was maybe 10 years old, sitting at the table with a bowl of cereal, her legs swinging under the chair. Daniel stood at the counter pouring coffee, humming quietly to himself. We looked like a perfect family, and for a long time, I believed we were. Daniel Thornton wasn't a loud man. He didn't need to be. His presence filled a room in quieter ways, through consistency, through reliability. He was the kind of husband who remembered to take out the trash before I asked who checked the locks twice before bed, who never forgot Emily's school events. If you had asked anyone back then, they would have told you we were solid, unshakable. But the truth is, cracks don't appear overnight. They form slowly, quietly. And sometimes you don't even realize they're there until something finally breaks. I met Michael Carter at work. I was in my early 40s then, working as an administrative assistant at a small insurance office downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave me a sense of purpose outside the house. Something that was just mine. Michael had transferred in from another branch. He was easy to talk to. That's the first thing I noticed. Not charming in a flashy way, not overly friendly. Just attentive. The kind of person who listened when you spoke, who remembered small details, who made you feel seen in a way you didn't realize you'd been missing. We worked together on a few projects. A lot of late afternoons, shared deadlines, occasional conversations that drifted from work into life. Nothing inappropriate, nothing that crossed a line. At least not in the way people might imagine. But emotional lines are harder to define and easier to cross without noticing. There was one evening I remember clearly. The office had emptied out, and I was still there finishing paperwork. Michael was at his desk across from me tapping his pen against a stack of files. "You ever feel like your life just settled?" he asked suddenly. I looked up surprised. "What do you mean?" He shrugged. "Like you wake up one day and realize everything's already decided. No more surprises, no more changes. Just, this is it." I should have brushed it off. I should have said something simple, something safe. But instead, I answered honestly. Sometimes I admitted, and that was the moment something shifted. Not into something romantic, not into something physical, but into something complicated. Because once you admit that kind of truth to someone, you open a door. And even if you never walk through it, the fact that it's there changes things. Michael never made a move. Neither did I. We stayed within the boundaries, always. But I started noticing things. The way I looked forward to conversations that had nothing to do with work. The way I lingered a little longer before leaving. The way I felt lighter somehow when I was around him. It wasn't love, but it wasn't nothing either. And that in-between space, that's where everything begins to blur. At home, Daniel started to notice the changes before I did. Not because I was doing anything wrong, but because something about me felt different. Distant, maybe. Distracted. I'd come home and move through my routines like always. Cook dinner, clean up, ask Emily about her day. But part of me was somewhere else. Not with Michael exactly, but not fully present either. Daniel watched. Quietly at first. Then, more closely. "You've been staying late a lot," he said one night as we sat in the living room. "Work's been busy," I replied. That was true, but again, not the whole truth. He nodded, but I could see it in his eyes. Doubt. The kind that doesn't disappear once it appears. It lingers, grows, looks for something to attach itself to, and eventually it finds it. I didn't know it at the time, but Daniel had started going through things, not in an obvious way. He wasn't the type to tear drawers apart or make accusations without proof. He was more methodical, careful. He paid attention, noticed patterns, and then one day, he found something. I still don't know exactly how. A letter, bold, folded, tucked away in a box I hadn't opened in years. It wasn't even recent. It wasn't even from the time I was working with Michael. It was older than that, but it had Michael's name on it, and that was enough. When Daniel confronted me, it wasn't with anger at first. It was with something worse. Cold certainty. "Who is he really?" he asked, holding the letter in his hand. I remember my heart dropping. "Daniel, it's not what you think." "Then tell me what it is." He cut in, his voice sharp. I tried. I really did. But how do you explain something that never fully happened, but still meant something? How do you defend a line you never crossed when everything around it looks like you did? The more I spoke, the worse it sounded. The more I tried to clarify, the more it felt like I was hiding something. And in that moment, Daniel made a decision. He chose a version of the story, one where I had betrayed him, one where everything we built together had been a lie. And once he believed that nothing I said mattered anymore. That night, Emily heard everything. Not every word, but enough. Enough to see her father's anger. Enough to hear the accusation. Enough to start asking questions. And the worst part? She didn't come to me for answers. She went to him, because in her eyes, he was the one who had been wronged, the one who deserved to be believed. And I was the one who couldn't explain myself in a way that made sense. That was the beginning. Not the end of our family, but the beginning of its collapse. A single misunderstanding, a single letter, a single moment where truth and perception drifted too far apart, and everything that came after was built on that. Even now, sitting here decades later, I can still hear Daniel's voice. You lied to both of us. Maybe that's why Emily believed him so completely, because sometimes the loudest version of the truth is the one people choose to remember, even if it was never the truth at all. The night everything finally broke, the house felt too quiet. Not peaceful quiet, not the kind you settle into after a long day. This was something heavier, something that pressed against your chest and made it hard to breathe. Daniel was already home when I walked in. That alone felt wrong. He was usually the one coming in after me those days, late distracted, carrying the same distance I had begun to feel in myself. But that evening, his car was already in the driveway, engine cold, like he'd been waiting. I knew something was off the moment I stepped inside. Emily wasn't in the living room. The TV was off. The kitchen lights were dim. And Daniel, he was sitting at the dining table, completely still. There was something in front of him. A piece of paper, folded once, carefully. My heart sank before I even saw it. Daniel, I said softly, closing the door behind me. He didn't answer, just lifted his eyes and looked at me in a way I had never seen before. Not angry, not confused, certain. That was what terrified me the most, because anger can be argued with, confusion can be explained, but certainty, once it takes hold, it doesn't let go. Where did you get that? I asked, my voice already unsteady. He tapped the paper once with his finger. In the attic, he said, calm, controlled, too controlled. In that old storage box you never touch anymore. I felt the air leave my lungs. That box, I hadn't opened it in years. It was full of things I didn't know what to do with. Old photos, paperwork, pieces of a past I thought no longer mattered. I never imagined something inside it could destroy everything. It's nothing, I said quickly. Too quickly. Just something from work, from a long time ago. He gave a small, humorless smile. That's interesting, he said, because it doesn't read like nothing. He unfolded the letter slowly, deliberately, as if he wanted me to feel every second of it. Then he began to read. Not the whole thing, just enough. Just the parts that could be twisted. Just the lines that mentioned Michael's name. Just the sentences that sounded personal. I stood there frozen, listening to words I barely remembered writing or maybe receiving. Words that out of context sounded far worse than they ever were. You kept this. I stood there, frozen, listening to words I barely remembered writing or maybe receiving. Words that out of context sounded far worse than they ever were. You kept this, Daniel said, lowering the paper. All these years. It didn't mean anything, I said, stepping closer. Daniel, you're misunderstanding, am I? His voice sharpened for the first time. Because it seems pretty clear to me. It's not what you think, I insisted. Then what is it? He snapped, standing up so suddenly the chair scraped loudly against the floor. That sound echoed through the house, and a second later, I heard footsteps. Emily! She was coming down the stairs, conned. Later I heard footsteps. Emily! She appeared at the hallway entrance, her eyes wide, her expression caught between curiosity and fear. What's going on? she asked. I turned to her instinctively. Emily, go back to your room, I said gently. But Daniel spoke over me. No, he said firmly. She stays. Daniel. She deserves to hear this, he cut in. My chest tightened. No, she doesn't, I said more urgently now. This is between us. But it was too late. Emily stepped closer, her eyes moving from him to me, trying to understand what was happening. Dad, she said quietly. Daniel looked at her, and for a moment I saw something in his face. Pain. Real pain. But then it hardened again. Your mother has something she wants to explain, he said. My stomach dropped. Daniel, please, go ahead. He said, his voice cold now. Tell her about Michael. Emily's eyes snapped to mine. Michael, she repeated. The way she said his name, like it was something foreign, something unfamiliar, it broke something inside me. He was just someone I worked with, I said carefully. That's all. Then why is his name in this? Daniel demanded, holding up the letter. Because we work together, I said, my voice rising despite myself. That doesn't mean— Don't, he said sharply. Don't insult me by pretending this is nothing. I'm not pretending anything, I said, my hands shaking now. You're reading into something that isn't there. Then explain it, he challenged. Explain why you kept this. Explain why you never told me about him. Because I didn't think it mattered. Because it wasn't what you think. Because I didn't want to create a problem where there wasn't one. All the answers were there. But none of them sounded strong enough. None of them sounded like proof. And in that moment, proof was the only thing that mattered. Emily stepped closer, her voice small but steady. Mom, did you have a relationship with him? That question, so simple, so direct, and yet answering it felt impossible, because the truth wasn't clean. It wasn't yes. It wasn't no. It was something in between. And that kind of truth doesn't survive moments like this. No, I said, finally. It was the closest thing to the truth I could give. But Daniel laughed. A short, bitter sound. Of course you didn't, he said. You expect us to believe that I'm telling you the truth? I said, my voice breaking. No, he said, shaking his head. You're telling us your version of it. He turned to Emily, then his expression softening just enough to pull her closer. Sweetheart, he said gently, you deserve honesty. And I don't think you've been getting that. Emily looked at him, then back at me. I could see it happening. The shift. The moment her trust began to move, away from me, toward him. Mom, she said again, her voice trembling now. Why didn't you tell us about him? Because it didn't matter, I said desperately. Because there was nothing to tell the moment her trust began to move, away from me, toward him. Mom, she said again, her voice trembling now. Why didn't you tell us about him? Because it didn't matter, I said desperately. Because there was nothing to tell. People don't hide things that don't matter, Daniel cut in. That's not true, I snapped. Sometimes people just lie, he finished for me. The word hung in the air, heavy, final. Emily flinched, and that was it. That was the moment everything changed. Not when the letter was found, not when the accusation started, but right there, when one word replaced every explanation I tried to give. Lie. Emily looked at me differently after that, not with anger, not yet, but with doubt. And doubt, once it's there, it doesn't need much to grow. I think I need some time, she said quietly. Then she turned and walked away. I took a step after her. "Emily, please." But she didn't stop. The sound of her bedroom door closing echoed through the house like a final answer. I stood there, staring at the empty hallway, feeling something inside me collapse. Daniel folded the letter again, slower this time. Deliberate, satisfied. "You see," he said quietly. "You did this." I turned to him, my eyes burning. "No," I said. "You did." But he just shook his head. And in his silence, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. It didn't matter what the truth was anymore. Not to him. Not to Emily. Because from that moment on, they had already decided what they believed. And I had already lost. The days that followed didn't explode into chaos the way you might expect. There were no screaming matches, no dramatic confrontations, just silence. A slow, suffocating silence that filled every corner of the house. Daniel stopped speaking to me unless it was absolutely necessary. Short, clipped sentences, practical things, bills, groceries, schedules. Nothing personal, nothing real. Emily, she was worse, because she tried, at first. I remember the morning after everything happened. She came into the kitchen while I was making coffee. Her eyes were tired like she hadn't slept. "Mom," she said quietly. That one word, soft, uncertain, gave me hope I didn't deserve. Yes, I turned to her immediately, too eager, too ready. She hesitated, then sat down at the table. I need to understand," she said. "What Dad said last night? It's not true," I said quickly. She flinched. Not because of what I said, but because of how fast I said it. That was my mistake. I should have slowed down. I should have listened. But I was so desperate to fix things to stop the damage before it spread that I rushed straight into defense. "You don't have to protect me," she said softly. "I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not protecting you. I insisted. I'm telling you the truth." She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw it, that doubt again. "Then why didn't you tell us about him before she asked?" "Because it didn't matter. Because it wasn't what you think. Because I didn't want to hurt anyone over something that wasn't real." The answers echoed in my head, but when I opened my mouth, nothing came out the right way. "I didn't think it was important," I said finally. And the moment those words left my lips, I knew I had lost her. Her expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough. Enough for me to feel it like a crack forming beneath my feet. "Not important," she repeated. "I mean, it wasn't. I tried to backtrack, but it was too late." "Mom," she said, her voice tightening. "Now, you don't hide things like that if they're not important." "It wasn't like that," I said, stepping closer. "You're misunderstanding?" "No," she cut in, shaking her head. "I think I'm finally understanding." Those words hit harder than anything Daniel had said, because they came from her, from my daughter, the one person I had been trying to protect all these years. "You think I lied to you?" I said quietly. She didn't answer right away. And that silence said everything. "I don't know what to think," she admitted, "but I know Dad wouldn't say something like that unless he believed it." There it was. The line. The moment she chose him, not compline. The moment she chose him, not compel Italy, not yet. "But enough. Your father is wrong," I said, my voice barely holding together. "He found something he doesn't understand and turned it into something it's not." "Telly." "Not yet," But enough. Your father is wrong, I said, my voice barely holding together. He found something he doesn't understand and turned it into something it's not. Then explain it to me, she said, her eyes searching mine. I'm trying, I whispered. But the truth was, I wasn't explaining anything. I was circling around it, avoiding the parts that were hardest to say, the parts that made everything messy. Because the truth wasn't clean. It wasn't simple. And in a moment like that, simple is what people want. Simple is what they believe. I think I need some space, she said, finally standing up. Emily, please, I'm not saying I don't believe you, she added quickly, though her eyes told a different story. I need time. Time. It sounds harmless, reasonable, but time without truth doesn't heal anything. It hardens things. It gives doubt room to grow. And that's exactly what it did. Over the next few weeks, the distance between us became something solid, something real. Emily stopped asking questions, stopped trying to understand, because in her mind, she already had an answer. And it didn't include my side of the story. Daniel made sure of that. I didn't hear everything he said to her, but I didn't need to. I saw the results. The way she avoided being alone with me. The way her tone shifted when she did speak. The way she started looking at me like I was someone she didn't fully trust. Like I was capable of something she couldn't quite forgive. One evening, I overheard them talking in the living room. I wasn't meant to hear it, but the hallway carried sound too well. You don't have to pretend with me, Daniel was saying. I'm not pretending, Emily replied. You're trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, he said gently. I understand that. She's your mother. There was a pause. I just don't want to believe she could do something like that. You're trying to give her the benefit of the doubt, he said gently. I understand that. She's your mother. There was a pause. I just don't want to believe she could do something like that, Emily admitted. My heart broke at those words, not because she was accusing me, but because she was trying not to, because she still wanted to believe in me and didn't know how. I didn't want to believe it either, Daniel said. But sometimes the truth isn't what we want it to be. Truth. He kept using that word, as if saying it enough times would make it real, as if repeating it would turn his version into fact. I saw the letter Emily, he continued. I read it. I know what it means. You don't know everything, she said weakly. I know enough, he replied. That was it. That was the moment. The final shift. Because when someone you trust says, I know enough, you stop looking for anything more. A few days later, Emily came to me again, but this time it wasn't to ask questions. It was to make a decision. I think I'm going to stay with Dad for a while, she said, standing in the doorway of the kitchen. The words were calm, careful, but they hit like a storm. Just for a little while, I asked, clinging to whatever hope I could find. She hesitated. I don't know, she admitted. That I don't know felt more permanent than anything else. This isn't fair, I said, my voice trembling. You're making a decision based on something you don't fully understand. Then help me understand, she said, her tone rising for the first time. Because right now, all I see is that you hid something from us. Something big enough that Dad feels betrayed. I didn't betray anyone, I said firmly. Then why does it feel like you did? She shot back. I had no answer. Not one she would accept. Not one that could undo everything that had already taken root. I love you, I said instead. Her expression softened for a second. Just a second. I know, she said quietly. But then it faded again. And with it, everything we used to be. She packed her things that night. Not everything. Just enough. enough to say she wasn't sure when she'd be back. I stood in the doorway of her room, watching her fold clothes into a suitcase I had bought her years ago. Every movement felt like a goodbye. "Emily," I started, but I didn't know what to say because every word felt too small, too late. She zipped the suitcase loosed, then looked at me. I hope someday every movement felt like a goodbye. "Emily," I started, but I didn't know what to say because every word felt too small, too late. She zipped the suitcase closed, then looked at me. "I hope someday you'll tell me the truth," she said. The truth. She was asking for something I had been holding on to all along, something I thought I was protecting her from. And now it was the very thing that was tearing us apart. "I will," I whispered, but she just nodded, as if she didn't believe me, as if she had already decided I never would. And then she walked past me, out the door, toward her father, and away from me. That night, I sat alone in the house we had built together, surrounded by memories that suddenly felt fragile, uncertain, like they could be rewritten at any moment. I told myself she would come back, that she just needed time, that once things settled, once emotions cooled, she would see things clearly. But deep down, I knew something had shifted in a way that couldn't easily be undone, because it wasn't just about a letter or a misunderstanding. It was about trust. And once that breaks, even the truth struggles to put it back together. After Emily left, the house didn't feel like a home anymore. It felt like a place I used to belong to. Her room stayed exactly the way she left it for months. I couldn't bring myself to touch anything. Not the half-empty dresser, not the framed photos on her desk, not even the sweater she'd tossed over the chair before packing her suitcase. It was as if keeping everything the same might somehow bring her back. It didn't. Daniel moved out officially 2 weeks later. There was no discussion, no attempt to fix things, just paperwork signatures and a quiet understanding that whatever we had built together had already been broken beyond repair. "I think this is best," he said the day he came to collect the rest of his things. Best. Such a simple word for something that destroyed an entire family. "Is it?" I asked, standing in the doorway as he packed boxes with the same careful precision he always had. He didn't look at me. "We both know this can't go back to what it was," he said. "That doesn't mean it had to end like this," I replied. He paused for a moment, then straightened up. "It ended the moment you decided not to tell the truth," he said. There it was again. That word. Truth. As if he owned it. As if he had the right to define it. "I didn't lie to you," I said, quietly. He turned, then finally meeting my eyes. "You didn't tell me everything," he said. "That's the same thing." No, it wasn't. But I didn't have the strength to argue anymore, because every conversation with him felt like trying to speak a language he had already decided not to understand. "You made your decision," I said instead. "So did Emily." His expression softened slightly at her name. "She needs stability right now," he said. "She needs to feel like she can trust something." The implication was clear. She couldn't trust me. "I never gave her a reason not to trust me," I said. He held my gaze for the long moment. Then he shook his head. "You gave her a reason not to trust what you say," he replied. And with that, the conversation was over. He walked past me carrying the last box out to his car, leaving behind a house that felt emptier with every step he took away from it. I watched from the window as he drove off. And just like that, 20 years of marriage disappeared into the distance. The divorce was finalized quickly. Too quickly. No long battles, no drawn-out arguments, just signatures and silence. I kept the house. He kept his certainty. And Emily. She kept her distance. At first she called occasionally, short conversations, careful words, polite but distant. "How are you?" she would ask. "I'm okay," I would reply. And that was it. No real conversation, no warmth, just obligation. Then gradually, even that faded. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And somewhere along the way, I stopped expecting her calls. But I never stopped hoping for them. There's a kind of loneliness that comes from being alone. And then there's the kind that comes from being misunderstood by the person who matters most. That second kind. It doesn't fade. It settles in. Becomes part of you. I tried at first to reach out more. Birthdays, holidays, small gestures. I would send cards, leave voicemails, ask if she wanted to meet for coffee. Sometimes she responded. Most of the time she didn't. And when she did, it was always the same tone. Careful, distant, as if she was speaking to someone she wasn't sure she fully knew. One Christmas, about 5 years after everything happened, she agreed to come over. Just for dinner. I remember spending the entire day preparing, cooking all her favorite dishes, setting the table the way I used to when she was younger, even pulling out the old decorations we hadn't used in years. For a moment, I let myself believe things might be different, that maybe enough time had passed, that maybe she was ready to see me again, really see me. But when she walked through the door, I knew. Nothing had changed. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hi, Mom," she said. "Hi, sweetheart," I replied, trying to sound normal, trying to hide the way my voice trembled. Dinner was quiet, not uncomfortable exactly, just empty. We talked about safe things, her job, the weather, mutual acquaintances, anything but the past, anything but the truth. At one point, I almost said it, almost told her everything, the real story, the part I had kept hidden all those years. But I stopped myself, because I saw the way she looked at me, still cautious, still unsure. And I realized something that terrified me. If I told her the truth and she didn't believe me, I would lose her completely. At least this way, there was still something left. Even if it was fragile, even if it was built on a lie she believed. That was the choice I made. Again. Silence over risk. Protection over honesty. And every year after that, the distance between us stayed exactly the same. Not growing, not shrinking, just there. Like a wall neither of us knew how to climb. Until now. Until that envelope sitting on my table. DNA results. Proof. The one thing I never had back then. The one thing that could have changed everything. I look at it now, my fingers tracing the edge again, just like I did earlier. 20 years. 20 years of silence. 20 years of being misunderstood. And all this time, the truth was waiting. Not gone. Not lost. Just waiting for the moment I was finally ready to face what it might cost to reveal it. Because this time, there's no more hiding, no more half-truths, no more protecting her from something she deserves to know. Even if it breaks her. Even if it breaks us. because some truths don't stay buried forever. And when they finally come to light, they don't just change the past. They rewrite everything you thought you knew, including who you really are. When Daniel died, I didn't cry right away. That surprised me. After everything we had been through, I thought the grief would come rushing in the moment I heard the news. But instead, there was just a strange, quiet stillness. Like the final chapter of a book I hadn't finished reading had suddenly been torn out. Emily called me that morning. It was early, too early for casual conversation. I remember staring at my phone when I saw her name, my heart skipping in a way it hadn't in years. For a brief, foolish moment, I thought maybe this was it. Maybe she was calling because she missed me. Maybe something had finally changed. Mom. Her voice came through tight and uneven. Something was wrong. What is it? I asked, immediately sitting up straighter. It's Dad, she said, and just like that, everything shifted. He had a heart attack last night, she continued. They couldn't save him. The words landed heavily, but not the way I expected. I felt something, a mix of shock, sadness, and something else I didn't want to name. I'm so sorry, I said quietly. And I meant it. Whatever had happened between us, Daniel had been a part of my life for decades. He was the father of the child I raised, the man I once believed I would grow old with. Losing him felt like losing a version of myself I could never get back. The funeral is on Thursday, Emily said. I thought you should know. Not I want you there. Not please come. Just information. I'll be there, I said. There was a pause. Okay, she replied, and then she hung up. The funeral was held in a small chapel just outside town. Simple, quiet, respectful. Exactly the kind of service Daniel would have wanted. I arrived early. I didn't want to walk in with everyone watching. Didn't want to feel the weight of their eyes, their judgments, their quiet assumptions about what had happened between us. Because people always assume things. They take fragments of a story and build something whole out of it, just like Emily had. I sat in the back row, keeping my head down, my hands folded tightly in my lap. For a while, no one noticed me, and I preferred it that way. Until Mom. Her voice, soft, unexpected. I looked up, and there she was, Emily, standing just a few feet away. She looked older, not in a way that time alone explains, but in a way that comes from carrying something heavy for too long. Hi, I said, my voice catching slightly. Hi, she replied. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she sat down beside me. That alone felt like something significant. We sat there in silence as people began to fill the room. Friends, colleagues, distant relatives, people who had known Daniel in different ways, people who would stand up and speak about the man they believed he was. I listened as they shared stories about his kindness, his reliability, his honesty. That last one lingered. Honesty. I felt something tighten in my chest, because I knew the version of him they were remembering. And I knew the version of him that had looked me in the eye and said, I had lied to both of them. Both things were true. That's what made it so complicated. Halfway through the service, Emily stood up to speak. I hadn't expected that. She walked to the front slowly, her hands clasped together, her shoulders tense. I always believed my dad knew everything, she began. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the emotion underneath. He was the kind of person who didn't miss things, who paid attention, who understood people. I lowered my gaze. because I knew where this was going. He taught me to value honesty, she continued, to believe that the truth matters even when it's hard. My throat tightened, and for a long time I thought that meant trusting what he told me. Without question, there was a shift in her tone then, subtle, but different. And I did, she said. I trusted him completely. I felt my heart begin to pound, because something about the way she said that felt unfinished, like there was more coming. And I don't regret that, she added quickly. He was my father, and I loved him. A pause. But love doesn't mean everything we believe is complete. The room grew quieter. Even the air felt still. I looked up, then my eyes locking onto her. She wasn't looking at the crowd. She was looking at me. I think sometimes we inherit not just the people we love, she said slowly, but also the things they believed, the things they were certain about. My breath caught, and sometimes we don't question those things, not because we don't want the truth, but because we're afraid of what questioning might change. There it was. Something was shifting, something I hadn't expected. I spent a long time believing I understood something about my family, she continued, about my mother. My chest tightened, because it was easier to believe one version of the story than to admit I might not know everything. Silence filled the room, heavy, expectant. And I don't know if I'll ever fully understand the truth, she said softly. But I do know this. She paused, her eyes still on mine. There are things we carry for years that we think are certain, and sometimes they're not. I felt tears sting my eyes for the first time that day. Not because of Daniel, but because of her. Because something inside her was beginning to question, to open, to reconsider. And that was something I had almost given up hoping for. After the service, people gathered outside, speaking in low voices, offering condolences, sharing memories. I stayed near the edge, unsure of where I belonged, until Emily approached me again. "Can we talk?" she asked. Those 3 words I had waited 20 years to hear them. "Yes," I said immediately. We walked a little further away from the crowd toward a quiet corner of the parking lot. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she turned to me. "There are things I need to ask you," she said. My heart began to race. "Okay," I said carefully. She hesitated, then took a breath. "Did you lie to me?" she asked. There it was, the question that had defined everything. For 2 decades. I looked at her. Really looked at her. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel afraid of the answer. "No," I said. Her eyes searched mine. "But I didn't tell you everything," I added. She swallowed. "Why?" "Because I thought I was protecting you. Because I didn't think you needed to carry that kind of truth. Because I was afraid of losing you." All the reasons rushed through my mind. But this time, I didn't hide behind them. Because I was afraid, I said honestly. She nodded slowly, as if that answer made sense. "I think I'm ready to hear it now," she said. My breath caught, because this was the moment, the one I had avoided for 20 years, the one I thought might never come. And now, it was here. I looked at her, my hands trembling slightly. "Then you need to be prepared," I said quietly. "For what?" "For the possibility that everything you believe about yourself might change." She held my gaze, didn't look away. I already feel like it has, she said. And in that moment, I knew. There was no more waiting, no more silence. The truth was finally ready to be told. We didn't talk much after the funeral. Not because there wasn't anything to say, but because there was too much. Emily stood beside her car, her fingers wrapped tightly around her keys like she needed something solid to hold on to. I have a doctor's appointment next week, she said suddenly. The shift in topic caught me off guard. What kind of appointment, I asked. She hesitated, then looked down. It's genetic testing, she said. Something came up in my last checkup. My stomach tightened. What do you mean? They found something unusual in my blood work, she explained. Nothing serious yet, but they want to run more tests. Family history markers, things like that. Family history. The words echoed louder than anything else she could have said. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Because I knew. I knew exactly where this could lead. And I wasn't sure I was ready for it. Is it serious? I asked carefully. I don't know yet, she admitted. They just said it would help to understand where I come from. Where I come from? I felt my chest tighten, because that question had always been there. Buried, ignored, avoided, and now it was rising to the surface. They suggested a DNA test, she added, her voice quieter now, to get a clearer picture. There it was. The moment I had feared and expected all at once. I swallowed hard. And what do you think about that? I asked. She looked at me then. Really looked. I think I don't want to keep guessing anymore, she said. Not about my health, not about anything. Her words hung between us, heavy with meaning. You think it might answer some questions? I said. I hope so, she replied. Hope. Such a simple word, but in this moment, it felt dangerous. Because hope can lead to truth, and truth can change everything. You don't have to do this alone, I said quietly. She gave a small, uncertain smile. I know, she said. That's why I told you. That meant something, more than she probably realized. After all these years, she was including me in something that mattered, even if she didn't fully trust me yet, even if there were still walls between us. It was a start. When is the test? I asked. Next Friday, she said. They'll send the results in a few weeks. A few weeks? It didn't sound like much, but I knew it would feel like forever. Do they need anything from me? I asked carefully. She hesitated. Maybe, she admitted. They said it could help to compare with a parent's DNA. My heart skipped. There it was, the moment I had been avoiding for 20 years. Of course, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Whatever you need. She nodded. Okay. We stood there in silence again, but this time it felt different. Not empty, not distant, just uncertain. Like we were standing at the edge of something neither of us fully understood. I'll let you know when I get the results, she said. I'd like that, I replied, and for the first time in a long time, like we were standing at the edge of something neither of us fully understood. I'll let you know when I get the results, she said. I'd like that, I replied, and for the first time in a long time, I meant it without fear. Because whether I was ready or not, the truth was coming. The next few weeks passed slowly, painfully slowly. Every day felt like a countdown. Every night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The past, the choices I made, the truth I kept hidden. I told myself I had done the right thing, that I had protected her, that I had given her a childhood free from confusion and pain. But now, I wasn't so sure. because that protection had turned into distance. That silence had turned into doubt. And now the truth was about to come out anyway. But this time, I wouldn't control how it happened, or when, or how much it would hurt. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. Emily. My heart jumped. "Hello," I answered quickly. "Mom," she said, her voice tense. The results came in. I sat up straighter, and there was a pause. Long enough to make my chest tighten. "They said Dad isn't my biological father." The words hit like a wave, even though I had expected them. Hearing them out loud was something else entirely. "I see," I said quietly. "You already knew, didn't you?" she asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "What makes you say that?" "Because you don't sound surprised," she replied. I hesitated, and that hesitation said everything. "Mom," she said again, her voice sharper now. "Did you know?" I closed my eyes. This was it, the moment where everything could still be hidden or finally revealed. "Yes," I said softly. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. "How long?" she asked. "Since not long after you were born," I admitted. Another silence, but this one felt different, colder, more dangerous. "So you let me believe he was my father, my whole life," she said. "It's not that simple," I began. "It sounds pretty simple to me," she cut in, her voice rising. "You knew the truth and you didn't tell me. I was trying to protect you," I said desperately. "Protect me from what?" she demanded. "From losing everything you thought you knew, from questioning your place in this world, from pain you didn't deserve." "All of it," I said. She let out a sharp, disbelieving laugh. "That's not protection, Mom," she said. "That's lying." "No," I said firmly. "It's not the same thing." "Then explain it to me," she challenged. "Because right now, all I see is that you kept something huge from me for my entire life." My hands were shaking. Because I knew I couldn't explain it in pieces anymore. I couldn't hide behind half-truths. Not now. Not when everything was already coming apart. "There's more you need to know," I said quietly. A pause. "What do you mean?" she asked. I took a deep breath. Because once I said it, there was no going back. No more waiting, I told myself. No more fear. "Emily," I said, my voice steady, "despite everything, the truth isn't just about your father." Another silence. Then, "What does that mean?" she asked slowly. "It means," I hesitated for just a second, "the DNA test isn't going to tell you the whole story." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, uneven, tense. "Then what will she ask?" I opened my eyes, staring at the envelope still sitting on my table, the one I had been holding on to, the one that contained everything. "Me," I said. And this time, I wasn't going to stay silent. Emily didn't come over right away. After our call, there was a long silence, one that stretched across 2 days, then 3. I didn't push. I didn't call again. I knew whatever she was feeling needed space to settle, even if that space felt unbearable on my end. But when she finally showed up at my door, I could tell immediately this wasn't the same Emily who had left my house 20 years ago. She looked shaken, not angry, not cold, just unsettled, like the ground beneath her had shifted, and she wasn't sure where to stand anymore. "I couldn't sleep," she said the moment I opened the door. I stepped aside without saying anything, letting her walk in. She moved slowly, glancing around the house as if seeing it for the first time in years. Her eyes lingered on the photos, old ones from before everything fell apart. Pictures of birthdays, holidays, small everyday moments that used to mean something. "Do you want coffee?" I asked quietly. She nodded. "Yes." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where so many things had been said, and so many things had been left unsaid. For a while, neither of us spoke. She just stared at her hands, turning her coffee mug slowly between her fingers. "They confirmed it," she said finally. My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" "They ran the test twice," she said. "There's no mistake." I nodded slowly. "I understand." "No, I don't think you do," she said, looking up at me. There was something sharper in her voice now, something closer to anger. "He's not my father," she said. "The man I thought I came from, the man I defended, the man I chose over you." Her voice broke. "He's not even related to me." The weight of that realization filled the room. I could see it in her face, the confusion, the betrayal, the loss. Because this wasn't just about biology. It was about identity, about everything she had built her understanding of herself on. "I know this is a lot," I said gently. "A lot," she repeated, almost laughing. "It's everything." She stood up, suddenly pacing a few steps before turning back to me. "You knew," she said again. "All thine." "You knew," she said again. "All this time, you knew he wasn't my father." "Yes," I said quietly. "And you still let me believe it," she said. "I didn't let you believe anything," I replied carefully. "I chose not to take that belief away from you. It's time you knew he wasn't my father." "Yes," I said quietly. "And you still let me believe it," she said. "I didn't let you believe anything," I replied carefully. "I chose not to take that belief away from you." "That's the same thing," she snapped. "No," I said, my voice firm for the first time. "It's not." She froze, because I had never spoken to her like that before, not since she was a child. "You think this is simple?" I continued. "You think this is just about telling the truth, or not telling it? But it's not. It never was." "Then what is it about?" she demanded. I took a deep breath. "Love," I said. She stared at me, confused, hurt, angry. "All I ever wanted was to protect you," I went on. "To give you a stable life, a father who loved you, a family that made sense. So you built it on a lie," she shot back. "No," I said. "I built it on what mattered." "What mattered?" she repeated bitterly. "You let me believe something that wasn't real. I let you believe something that gave you security. I said, something that gave you a sense of belonging. And now," she asked, her voice trembling, "now what do I have?" That question, it cut deeper than anything else she had said, because I didn't have an easy answer. But I knew one thing. "You still have me," I said softly. She looked at me like she didn't know whether to believe that. "Do I?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "You always have." She shook her head. "I don't even know who I am anymore," she whispered. And there it was, the real fear. Not about me, not about Daniel, but about herself. "I've spent my whole life thinking I understood where I came from," she said. "And now, I don't even know what's real." I stood up slowly, walking toward her. "Then let me help you understand." I said. She hesitated. You said there's more, she reminded me. There is, I confirmed. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What could possibly be worse than this? I didn't answer right away. Because I knew once I said it, there would be no going back. This isn't just about your father, I said carefully. It never was. Then what is it about? She pressed. I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman she had become, at the child I had raised, at the person I had protected for 20 years, and I realized something. She was ready. Not for comfort, not for half-truths, but for the truth, the whole truth. No more hiding. I told myself again. Emily, I said slowly, the DNA test didn't just prove that Daniel isn't your father. She held her breath. It also proves something else. What? She asked. I could hear the tension in her voice, the fear, the anticipation. That the man we thought might be your father? I continued carefully. Isn't either. Her eyes widened. What do you mean? I mean Michael Carter, I said. He's not your biological father either. She stared at me, completely still, as if her mind couldn't process what I had just said. That doesn't make any sense, she whispered. I know, I said. No, she insisted, shaking her head. That's not possible. If he's not my father, and Daniel's not my father. Her voice trailed off. And then the realization hit hard. You're saying, she began slowly. I nodded. Yes. Her face went pale. That's not possible, she said again, more urgently this time. You're my mother. That hasn't changed. I didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there and let the silence answer for me. Because sometimes the truth doesn't need words. It just needs the courage to finally be seen. Emily didn't move. She just stood there staring at me as if the ground beneath her had disappeared entirely. That's not funny, she said after a long moment. Her voice wasn't angry. It was fragile. I'm not joking, I replied quietly. No, she said, shaking her head slowly. No, that doesn't make any sense. You're my mother. I came from you. That's not something that just changes. I took a step toward her, my heart aching at the fear in her eyes. I understand why this feels impossible, I said gently. But the truth doesn't stop being real just because it's hard to accept. Her breathing became uneven. So what are you saying? She demanded. That the test is wrong? That the lab made a mistake? No, I said. Then what? She pressed. I hesitated, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I knew once I said it, everything would fall apart. The test is right, I said slowly. It's telling you something we should have known a long time ago. She stared at me, waiting, desperate. What is it? She whispered. I swallowed hard. You're not biologically my daughter, I said. The words hung in the air, sharp, unforgiving. Emily blinked, once, twice, as if her mind was trying to catch up with something it refused to understand. That's not possible, she said again, but this time her voice was barely there. I wish it wasn't, I replied softly. She stepped back, her hand gripping the edge of the table for support. No, she repeated louder now. No, this is insane. You're just saying things. You're trying to explain something and it's coming out wrong. I'm not explaining it wrong, I said. I'm telling you exactly what happened. Then explain it, she shouted, Her voice echoed through the house. For a second, I saw the little girl she used to be, the one who cried when things didn't make sense, who looked to me to fix everything. And now I was the one breaking everything. It started the day you were born, I said quietly. She froze. What? At the hospital, I continued. There was a mistake. Her eyes widened. No. They switched the babies, I said. Silence. Complete. Absolute. As if the world itself had stopped. You're lying, she said finally. The words were automatic, defensive, but they didn't carry the same certainty they once had. I'm not, I said gently. Yes, you are. She insisted, but her voice trembled. This is too much. First Dad, now this. You expect me to believe I'm just what some stranger's child. You're not a stranger's child, I said firmly. You're the child I raised, the child I loved, the child who grew up in this house. That's not the same thing, she cried. Her hands were shaking now. Her entire body was. I've lived my whole life believing something, she said. And now you're telling me none of it is real. I'm telling you that the foundation was different, I said. Not that your life wasn't real. She let out a hollow laugh. That doesn't even make sense. I found out when you were a few months old. I continued, my voice steady despite everything. There were inconsistencies, medical records that didn't match, blood types that didn't line up. Her expression shifted. Slightly. Because this sounded like something real. I went back to the hospital, I said. I asked questions, and eventually they admitted it. They just admitted they gave you the wrong baby? She asked, disbelief still heavy in her voice. It wasn't that simple, I said. But yes, there had been another child, another family. She stared at me. Then why didn't you fix it? She demanded. Why didn't you go find them? Why didn't you give me back? The question hit like a knife. Because I had asked myself that same question every day for 20 years. I tried, I said quietly. She shook her head. No, you didn't. I did, I insisted. At first. Her eyes searched mine, looking for something, anything. They told me the other family had already left, I said, that there was no easy way to trace them, that it could take years, that it might never be resolved. And that was it, she snapped. You just gave up. No, I said, my voice breaking now. I didn't give up. Then what did you do? She demanded. I closed my eyes for a moment, because this was the part that mattered most. I looked at you, I said softly. She didn't speak. I looked at this tiny baby I had been holding for months. I continued. The one who cried when I put her down. The one who smiled when she heard my voice. The one who already felt like mine. My voice trembled, and I realized something I said, what she whispered. That I couldn't give you up. The words came out barely above a whisper, but they filled the entire room. I couldn't hand you over to strangers, I said, even if they were your biological parents, because by then, you weren't just theirs. Tears blurred my vision. You were mine. Emily didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there absorbing everything. I made a choice, I said. A selfish one, maybe. A complicated one. But a choice I believed was right at the time. And you never told me, she asked. Her voice was softer now, more fragile. I was going to, I admitted, so many times, when you were a teenager, when you started asking questions, when things with your father began to fall apart. Then why didn't you? She pressed. Because I was afraid, I said honestly. Afraid of what? Afraid you would feel exactly the way you feel right now, I replied. That landed. I could see it in her face. The confusion, the anger, the sense of losing something she didn't even know she could lose. I didn't want to take that away from you, I said. Your sense of identity, your sense of belonging. So instead, you let me believe a lie, she said. Yes, I admitted. Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't sharp. It wasn't explosive. It was heavy, full of everything that had been hidden for so long. I don't know what to do with this, she said finally. I know, I said softly. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. I stepped closer. You're still the same person you were yesterday, I said. No, I'm not, she said immediately. Yesterday, I knew where I came from, and today, I said gently, you know something deeper. She shook her head. No, today I know nothing. I reached out slowly, placing my hand over hers. She didn't pull away. Not this time. You know this? I said. You were loved, completely, from the moment I held you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. I don't even know if I should be angry or grateful, she admitted. You're allowed to be both, I said. She let out a shaky breath. I spent 20 years thinking you were the one who broke our family, she said. I know, I whispered. And now, she continued, her voice cracking, I don't even know what the truth is anymore. I squeezed her hand gently. Then we'll figure it out, I said. Together. She looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time in a very long time, there was no anger in her eyes, no distance. Just I squeezed her hand gently. Then we'll figure it out, I said. Together. She looked at me, really looked at me. And for the first time in a very long time, there was no anger in her eyes, no distance, just uncertainty, and something else, something fragile, something that felt like the beginning of understanding. Emily sat down slowly, not because she wanted to, but because her body seemed to give up on holding her up. I need a minute, she whispered. I didn't move closer this time, didn't speak. I had learned the hard way that some moments don't need comfort, they need space. Sheeper need comfort, they need space. She pressed her palms against her temples, her eyes squeezed shut, as if she could physically block out what she had just heard. They switched babies, she said again, as if eating it might make it less real. Yes, pressed her palms against her temples, her eyes squeezed shut, as if she could physically block out what she had just heard. They switched babies, she said again, as if repeating it might make it less real. Yes, I answered quietly. And you just kept me? The way she said it carried something sharp inside it, like I had taken something that didn't belong to me. I didn't think of it that way, I said. But that's what it is, she replied, opening her eyes. You took someone else's child. I raised my child. I corrected gently. She shook her head. That's not the same thing. No, I admitted, it's not. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it wasn't heavy with shock. It was full of something else. Processing. Trying to put pieces together that had never fit before. What about them? She asked suddenly. My heart skipped. Who? My real parents? She said. The ones who had me? I had known this question was coming. I had just hoped I would be more ready when it did. I don't know, I said honestly. Her expression hardened. You don't know, she repeated. They disappeared from the hospital records, I explained. Different last name, different address. At the time, tracking them down wasn't as simple as it is now. But you said you tried? She said. I did. I insisted. For months. Maybe longer. Then why didn't you keep trying? She asked. The question wasn't accusing this time. It was searching, and that made it harder to answer. Because every time I tried to imagine finding them, I said slowly, I also had to imagine losing you. Her eyes softened slightly. Just slightly. I was already your mother, I continued. Maybe not biologically, but in every way that mattered day to day. And the thought of handing you over, I stopped. Because even now, it still hurt to say it out loud. I couldn't do it. I finished quietly. She looked down at her hands again. I don't know if that makes you selfish or human, she murmured. Maybe both, I said. She let out a small breath, then leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling, as if it might give her answers I couldn't. This changes everything, she said. Yes, I agreed. I mean everything, she repeated. My childhood, my memories, the way I looked at you, the way I looked at Dad. Her voice caught. And all those years I thought you were lying. She trailed off. I didn't say anything, because this part she needed to come to on her own. I was so sure, she whispered. So sure you had done something wrong, that you had broken our family. Her eyes moved to mine, and you let me believe that. The words weren't sharp. They were tired. Yes, I said. Why, she asked. Because I thought it was better than the alternative, I replied. What alternative? That you would grow up feeling like you didn't belong anywhere, I said. She went quiet. Because that landed. I thought if you believed Daniel was your father, if you believed you were exactly where you were supposed to be, I continued, then you wouldn't question yourself. And instead, I questioned you, she said. Yes, a bitter kind of irony hung between us. I spent 20 years being angry at you, she said. I know. I judged you, she added. I chose him over you. I know, I repeated softly. And all this time, she said, her voice breaking slightly. You were carrying this alone. That was the part she hadn't understood before. Not the truth itself, but the weight of it. Yes, I said. She wiped at her eyes quickly, as if she didn't want me to see. I don't know what to do with that, she admitted. You don't have to do anything with it right now, I said. You just have to feel it. She gave a small, shaky laugh. That sounds like something you would have said when I was a kid. Some things don't change, I replied. She looked at me again, longer this time, more carefully, as if she was trying to see past everything she thought she knew. I don't know who my parents are, she said. No, I agreed. I don't know where I come from. No, I don't even know if there's someone out there who's been wondering about me this whole time. That thought, it had haunted me for years. I've wondered that too, I admitted. She swallowed. Do you think we could find them? The question came out quietly, but it carried something new. Not anger, not blame. Hope. I think we can try, I said. Her eyes flickered. With DNA, I added. There are databases now, matches, connections, things that didn't exist back then. She nodded slowly. Then I want to try, she said. Okay, I replied, and I want you to be part of it, she added. My chest tightened, in a different way this time, a softer way. I would like that, I said. She hesitated, then asked the question I knew was coming next. What happens if we find them? I didn't answer right away, because there was no easy answer. I don't know, I said honestly. She nodded. Neither do I. We sat there for a long time after that, not talking, not arguing, just existing in the same space, for the first time in years. And even though everything felt uncertain, even though the ground beneath us was still shifting, there was something else there, something small, fragile, but real, understanding, not complete, not perfect, but enough to start again. Because sometimes the truth doesn't fix everything. Sometimes it just gives you a chance to rebuild from something real. The next morning, everything felt different. Not calmer, not easier, just clearer. Like a storm had passed, but the damage was finally visible. Emily stayed the night. She didn't say much after everything we talked about. We sat in the living room for a while, then eventually she took the old guest room, Daniel's old room. That alone carried its own weight, but neither of us mentioned it. Some things didn't need words anymore. I woke up early out of habit. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to feel empty, but this time it felt shared. I made coffee and stood by the kitchen window, watching the sun slowly rise over the yard. 20 years. 20 years of silence, of distance, of misunderstandings. And now made coffee and stood by the kitchen window, watching the sun slowly rise over the yard. 20 years. 20 years of silence, of distance, of misunderstandings. And now everything had been pulled into the open in a matter of hours. It felt unreal. I heard soft footsteps behind me. Emily. She walked into the kitchen slowly, her hair slightly messy, her expression tired but softer. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I replied. I handed her a cup of coffee without asking. She took it, wrapping her hands around it like she needed the warmth. We stood there in silence for a moment. Then she spoke. "I kept thinking about what you said," she murmured. I nodded. So did I. She let out a small breath. "I don't know how to feel about you keeping it from me," she admitted. "Part of me is still angry." "That's fair," I said. But another part, she hesitated, searching for the right words. Another part understands why you did it. I looked at her. Really looked at her. Because that was something I never expected to hear. "I'm not saying it was the right choice," she added quickly. I can see it from your side now." That was more than enough. "You don't have to justify anything," I said gently. "Your feelings are valid. All of them." She nodded. "I just wish I had known sooner," she said. "So do I admitted. We both knew that truth. We had both lived the consequences of waiting too long. "What happens now?" she asked. I leaned against the counter, thinking. "That depends on what you want," I said. She frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, this is your story too," I explained. "Not just mine. Not just something that happened to you. Something you get to decide what to do with." She considered that. "I want to find them," she said finally. I nodded. "I thought you might. My biological parents," she clarified. "I need to know who they are, where I come from. Even if it doesn't change anything, I need to know." "That makes sense," I said. "And I want you there," she added. The words were simple, but they carried something deeper. Trust. It'll be there, I said. She gave a small nod. Good. We spent the rest of the morning going over what we knew, which wasn't much. The hospital name, the approximate date, a few details from the old records I had kept hidden for so long. I went into the attic and brought down the same box Daniel had once opened, the one that started everything. It felt strange holding it again, like touching a piece of the past that had caused so much damage and yet now might finally help us move forward. Emily watched as I carefully opened it. Inside were old documents, yellowed papers, notes I had written during those first desperate months after discovering the truth. You kept all of this? She asked. I couldn't throw it away, I said. She picked up one of the papers, scanning it quickly. This is a hospital report, she said. Yes, and this, she flipped to another page. This is a complaint form. I filed it, I explained. Back then, it didn't go very far. She shook her head slowly. They really just let this happen. It was a different time, I said. Not an excuse, just the reality. She set the papers down carefully. I don't think I would have believed any of this without the DNA test, she admitted. I know, I said. And now that I do, she paused. It's like everything I thought I knew is I don't think I would have believed any of this without the DNA test, she admitted. I know, I said. And now that I do, she paused. It's like everything I thought I knew is shifting. That's normal, I said. Your identity isn't just facts. It's memories, relationships, emotions. Those don't disappear just because the facts change. She looked at me. But they feel different now, she said. I understand. She hesitated. Do you regret it? She asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. Regret what? Keeping me, she said. The words hung in the air, heavy. I didn't hesitate. No, I said firmly, not even for a second. She studied my face, looking for doubt, for hesitation, for anything that might contradict what I said. She didn't find it. Not once, she asked. Not once, I repeated, her eyes filled with tears. Not the sharp, painful kind from before. Something softer. Something quieter. I don't know how to process that, she admitted. You don't have to, I said. Not all at once. She nodded slowly. I spent so long thinking you were the one who broke everything, she said. And now I realize you were the one holding everything together. The words hit deeper than anything she had said before, because they weren't just about the past. They were about how she saw me now. You did what you thought was right, she added. I did what I could, I said. She reached for my hand, carefully, like she wasn't sure if it would still feel the same. But when our hands touched, there was no hesitation, no distance, just familiarity, warmth. Thank you, she said softly. For what? For not giving me up, she replied. My throat tightened, because that was the first time she had ever said it like that, not as an accusation, but as something she was beginning to understand. We sat there for a long time after that, going through old papers, talking about possibilities, planning what to do next. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And for the first time in 20 years, that was enough. Because sometimes the truth doesn't fix the past, but it gives you something even more important, a chance to build something honest from this moment forward. The process of searching for her biological family didn't happen overnight. In fact, it started quietly, almost awkwardly. Emily created an account on one of those DNA ancestry platforms, the kind people use to find distant cousins or learn about their heritage. It felt strange watching her do it, knowing that for her, this wasn't curiosity. This was identity. "Upload the results," she muttered, more to herself than to me. I sat across from her at the kitchen table, pretending to read something on my phone. But really, I was watching her. Every movement, every hesitation. Because I knew this part would be harder than everything we had already been through. Not because of what we might find, but because of what we might find. But because of what we might not. "What if there's nothing?" she asked suddenly. I looked up. "What do you mean?" "What if there are no matches?" she said. "No names, no clues. What if I just stay this unknown person forever of what we might not? What if there's nothing?" she asked suddenly. I looked up. "What do you mean? What if there are no matches?" she said. "No names, no clues. What if I just stay this unknown person forever?" Her voice didn't carry panic. It carried something deeper, fear of emptiness. "You won't," I said gently. "You don't know that," she replied. "No," I admitted. "But I do know this. Answers have a way of showing up when you're ready for them." She gave me a small, skeptical look. "That sounds like something from a self-help book." I smiled slightly. "Maybe," I said, "but it doesn't make it untrue." She didn't argue. Instead, she hit submit. And just like that, we were waiting. Days passed. Then a week. Then 2. At first, Emily checked the site constantly. Every few hours, every notification made her jump. Every email alert made her stop whatever she was doing. But as time went on, that urgency turned into something quieter. Something heavier. "What if they don't want to be found?" she asked one evening. We were sitting in the living room, the TV on, but neither of us really watching. "They might not even know," I said. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "If the hospital never told them," I explained, "they could have raised another child believing it was theirs. Just like I did." That thought, it landed differently. "So there's another person out there," she said slowly. "Someone who's been living my life." "Not your life," I corrected gently. "Their own life, just connected to yours in a way neither of you chose." She nodded, but I could see her mind working through it, trying to picture someone she had never met, someone who might look like her, someone who might not. It was too much, and yet not enough. The notification came on a Tuesday afternoon. I remember because Emily had just stepped out to grab groceries, and I was alone in the house when her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. I didn't touch it. I couldn't, but I saw the screen. DNA match found. My heart started racing. Not mine, hers, but still. Everything in me reacted. I stood there staring at the phone like it might disappear if I blinked. Then I heard the front door open. "I forgot my wallet," Emily called out. She stepped into the kitchen, and the moment she saw the screen, everything stopped. "What is that?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She picked up the phone slowly, her hands already trembling. "DNA match found," she read aloud. Her eyes widened, then she tapped the screen. I watched her face as she scrolled, as she read, as her expression shifted. Confusion, shock, disbelief, and then something else. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What is it?" I watched her face as she scrolled, as she read, As her expression shifted, confusion, shock, disbelief, and then something else. "Oh my God," she whispered. "What is it?" I asked carefully. She didn't answer right away, just stared at the screen like it was showing her something she couldn't quite process. "Emily," I said again, softer this time. She looked up at me, and I saw it. Everything had changed. "There's a match," she said. I nodded. "I figured." "No," she said, shaking her head. "Not just any match." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" She swallowed hard. You mean," she swallowed hard. It's a close match?" "How close?" Her voice broke slightly. "Too close to be anything but immediate family." The words hit like a wave. "Immediate," I repeated. She nodded. "There's a woman, a close match." "How close?" Her voice broke slightly. "Too close to be anything but immediate family." The words hit like a wave. "Immediate," I repeated. She nodded. "There's a woman," she said, "listed as a possible mother." The room went completely still. "Are you sure?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me. I didn't need to understand all the technical details. The percentage, the markers, the confirmation. It was clear. This wasn't a distant cousin. This was her. "She has a name," Emily said. "What is it?" I asked. Emily hesitated, then read it aloud. Laura Bennett. The name meant nothing to me, but to Emily, it meant everything. "She's in Ohio," Emily added. My heart skipped. "Here." She nodded. "Less than 2 hours away." That detail changed everything. Because suddenly, this wasn't just an abstract possibility. This was real, close, reachable. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Emily didn't answer right away. She sat down slowly, her eyes still fixed on the screen. "I don't know." This wasn't just an abstract possibility. This was real, close, reachable. "What do you want to do?" I asked. Emily didn't answer right away. She sat down slowly, her eyes still fixed on the screen. "I don't know," she admitted. "That's okay," I said. "You don't have to decide right now." But she shook her head. "No, I think I do." She looked up at me, and there was something in her eyes I hadn't seen before. Determination. "I've spent my whole life not knowing," she said. "I don't think I can go back to that now." I nodded. "I understand. I want to contact her," she said. My breath caught. "Are you sure?" "No," she admitted, "but I think I need to be." That made sense, because certainty wasn't something either of us had anymore. "Do you want me to be there?" I asked. She looked at me, long and carefully, then nodded. "Yes." That one word, it meant more than anything else she could have said, because it meant she still saw me as part of this, still wanted me there, even now. We sat together as she typed the message. Short, simple, honest. "My name is Emily. I believe we may be related through a DNA match. I'm trying to understand my family history. If you're open to talking, I would really appreciate it." She stared at the message for a long time. Then she hit send. And just like that, another door opened, one that couldn't be closed again. "What happens now?" she asked. I looked at her, at the woman she had become, at the child I had raised, at the person standing on the edge of a truth she had never imagined. "Now," I said quietly, "we wait." Because sometimes the hardest part of finding the truth is what comes after. The reply came faster than either of us expected. Less than 24 hours. I was in the kitchen when Emily's phone buzzed. She froze mid-step, her entire body going still before she even reached for it. "It's her," she said quietly. My heart started pounding. "Do you want me to—" "No," she said quickly. "Stay." So I did. I stood there just a few feet away as she unlocked her phone with trembling fingers. She read silently at first. Then her lips parted slightly. And I saw it again, that shift in her expression. Not shock this time, something deeper. "She remembers," Emily whispered. "What?" I asked softly. "She said she's been looking for me." The words filled the room. Heavy, unbelievable, but real. "She knew I asked." Emily nodded slowly, still staring at the screen. "She said the hospital told her weeks after she got home that there might have been a mistake, but by the time they followed up," her voice caught. "It was too late." I closed my eyes briefly, because that part hurt in a way I couldn't explain. "She said they tried to find me," Emily continued, "but the records were incomplete. Names were wrong, addresses missing." My chest tightened. Because I had tried too. From the other side, 2 families. Both searching, both failing. "She thought I was gone forever," Emily said softly. Silence settled between us. Not empty this time. Just full of everything that could have been. "What else did she say?" I asked. Emily swallowed. "She wants to meet." My breath caught. "That's soon," I said carefully. "She said she doesn't expect anything," Emily added quickly. "No pressure, no expectations, just a chance to talk." Emily finally looked up at me. "What do I do?" There it was again, that question, not as a child this time, but as someone standing at the edge of something life-changing. "What do you feel?" I asked. She hesitated. "I feel like I need to see her," she admitted, "but I'm also terrified." "That makes sense," I said. "What if she expects something from me?" Emily asked. "What if she wants me to be her daughter?" The word hung there. Daughter. A word that suddenly had more than one meaning. "You don't owe her anything," I said gently. "Just like she doesn't owe you anything." Emily nodded. "But what if I feel something?" she whispered. "What if I don't?" I stepped closer. "That's something you'll only understand when it happens," I said. She looked at me searching. "And you're okay with this?" she asked. The question surprised me. "Of course I am," I said. She studied my face carefully. "You're not afraid I'll choose her?" That was the question I had been afraid to hear. But I didn't hesitate. "No," I said. Her eyes widened slightly. "Why not?" "Because I already lived through losing you once. Because love doesn't disappear just because something new enters your life. Because you are my daughter, no matter what biology says." All of those reasons, I thought. But what I said was simpler. "Because love doesn't work like that," I answered. She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay." The meeting was set for Saturday. A small café of those reasons, I thought. But what I said was simpler. "Because love doesn't work like that," I answered. She stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Okay." The meeting was set for Saturday, a small cafe halfway between our town and hers. Neutral, quiet, safe. The kind of place where 2 strangers could sit across from each other and decide what they wanted to become. The days leading up to it felt heavier than anything we had experienced so far. Not because of fear, but because of anticipation. Because this wasn't about uncovering the truth anymore. This was about living with it. Emily spent a lot of time thinking, sometimes talking, sometimes just sitting quietly. I didn't push. I didn't try to guide her feelings, because this was hers. Saturday morning came too quickly. Emily stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her jacket for the third time. "Do I look okay?" she asked. "You look like yourself," I said. She gave a small, nervous smile. "I don't even know what that means anymore." "It means you're enough," I replied. She nodded, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the uncertainty in her eyes. We drove in silence, not uncomfortable, just focused, like we were both preparing for something we couldn't fully imagine. When we arrived, Emily didn't get out of the car right away. "She might already be inside," she said. "She might," I agreed. "What if I can't do this?" she asked. I turned to her. "Then we leave," I said simply. She blinked. That's it, I said. "You don't owe anyone more than you're ready to give?" She took a deep breath, then another. "Okay," she whispered. And finally, she opened the door. The cafe was quiet, only a few people scattered at tables. And then I saw her, a woman sitting near the window, mid-60s maybe, her hands wrapped tightly around a coffee cup she wasn't drinking, her eyes scanning every person who walked through the door, waiting. Emily saw her too. I felt it in the way her steps slowed, the way her breath caught, the way something inside her recognized something before her mind could process it. "That's her," Emily whispered. I nodded, yes. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. Two lives, two stories, two versions of what could have been. And then the woman stood up, slowly, carefully, as if she was afraid one wrong movement might make this moment disappear. "Emily?" she asked. Her voice trembled. Emily didn't answer right away. She just walked forward. One step, then another, until they were standing face to face, up close. The resemblance was undeniable, not identical, but there, in the eyes, in the shape of the face, in something deeper, something that didn't need explanation. "I've been looking for you," the woman said, her voice breaking. Emily swallowed hard. "I didn't know how to find you," she replied, and just like that, 20 years of distance collapsed into a single moment. I stood a few steps back, watching. Not as someone being replaced, but as someone witnessing something that needed to happen. Because this wasn't about losing her. It was about letting her have the full truth of who she was, and trusting that what we had built together was strong enough to remain. I didn't join them at the table right away. I stayed a few steps back near the entrance of the cafe, watching quietly as Emily and Laura sat down across from each other. There are moments in life where you know you're witnessing something that doesn't belong to you. This was one of them. Laura kept her hands folded tightly on the table like she was afraid they might betray how much she was shaking. Emily mirrored her without realizing it, same tension, same uncertainty, same fragile attempt to stay composed. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Laura broke first. "I don't even know where to start," she said softly. Emily let out a small breath. "I don't either." There was something almost comforting in that. Two people equally lost, equally unsure, trying to meet somewhere in the middle. "I've thought about this moment for years," Laura continued. "And now that it's here, I'm afraid to say the wrong thing." Emily nodded. "I feel the same way." Silence again. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was careful. Measured. Like they were both testing the ground beneath them. I used to wonder what you looked like, Laura said. If you were okay. If you were happy. Emily swallowed. I was, she said, most of the time. Laura's eyes filled with tears. That matters, she whispered. I stepped a little closer, then not to interrupt, but just enough to be there if Emily needed me. She noticed. Her eyes flickered toward me for a second, and in that glance I saw it. Not confusion, not distance, recognition. As if she was silently reminding herself I'm not alone. Laura followed her gaze. She looked at me, really looked at me, and something shifted in her expression. You're Patrick? She said. I nodded. Yes. Her voice trembled slightly. You raised her. I did, I replied. She pressed her lips together, trying to hold back emotion. Thank you, she said. The words caught me off guard. For what I asked. For loving her, she answered. For giving her a life when I couldn't. I didn't know what to say to that, because it wasn't something I had ever thought of as a favor. I didn't do anything extraordinary, I said quietly. I just became her mother. Laura shook her head. That's everything, she said. Emily looked between us, her eyes moving from one woman to the other, and I could see it happening, the realization. Not that she had to choose, but that she didn't have to. This is strange, she admitted. That's one way to put it, I said softly. She let out a small, nervous laugh. I feel like I'm standing between two versions of my life. Laura reached out slightly, then hesitated, unsure if the gesture would be welcome. Emily noticed, and after a brief pause, she didn't pull away. The touch was light. She didn't pull away. The touch was light, careful, but real. I don't want to replace anything, Laura said quickly. I don't expect anything from you. I wanted to know you, to see you, to know that you're okay. Careful, but real. I don't want to replace anything, Laura said quickly. I don't expect anything from you. I wanted to know you, to see you, to know that you're okay. Emily nodded. I think I needed that too, she said. There was no dramatic reunion, no overwhelming embrace, just quiet understanding. And somehow that felt more honest. We stayed at the cafe for over an hour, talking, asking questions, filling in pieces of a story that had been missing for decades. Emily learned she had a biological father who had passed away years ago. She learned she had a younger half-brother she had never known existed. She learned small things, favorite foods, shared habits, little traits that suddenly made sense. But through all of it, she kept looking at me, not constantly, but enough. As if she was grounding herself, reminding herself that no matter what she discovered, something in her life was still certain. When we finally stood to leave, Laura hesitated again. I don't want to overwhelm you, she said. We can take this slowly. Or not at all. Whatever you're comfortable with. Emily smiled faintly. I think slowly is good. Laura nodded. Slowly is good. They exchanged numbers. Not as strangers, not quite as family, but as something in between, something new, something undefined. And that was okay. On the drive home, Emily was quiet, not withdrawn, just thinking, processing. I didn't interrupt. I had learned that silence could be its own kind of conversation. Finally, she spoke. I thought meeting her would change everything, she said. And did it? I asked. She shook her head. It changed something, she admitted, but not in the way I expected. How so? She looked out the window. I thought I would feel like I belonged with her, she said, or that something inside me would just click into place. And it didn't, she said. My chest tightened slightly. Not from fear, from understanding. She's part of me, Emily continued. I can see that now. But she turned to me. You're my mother. The words were simple, but they carried 20 years of weight. You always have been, she added. I felt something inside me finally let go, a tension I hadn't even realized I was still holding. I'm glad you see it that way, I said quietly. She smiled. Not the distant, guarded smile I had grown used to, but something warmer, something familiar. I think I needed to find her, she said. Not to replace you, but to understand myself. That makes sense, I said, and I think she hesitated, then continued. I think I needed to forgive you too. My hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. I'm still working on that part, she added quickly. But I understand now why you made the choices you did. That was more than I had hoped for. More than I thought I would ever hear. That's all I can ask for, I said. She reached over, then placing her hand gently over mine. A simple gesture, but one that meant everything. We'll figure the rest out, she said, together. I nodded. Yes, I said softly, together. And for the first time in 20 years, that word didn't feel like something we had lost. It felt like something we had finally found again. What this story reminds us, perhaps more powerfully than anything else, is that truth and love don't always arrive at the same time. Sometimes love comes first. It grows quietly in the spaces where certainty is missing, where answers are unclear, where choices are imperfect. And sometimes the truth follows much later, not to erase that love, but to test it, to stretch it, to ask whether it was ever real to begin with. We often believe that family is defined by blood, by names, by documents that prove where we come from. But life has a way of challenging those beliefs. Because in the end, it is not DNA that stays up all night when you're sick. It is not biology that holds your hand through your fears or teaches you how to stand again when everything falls apart. It is love. Consistent, imperfect human love. At the same time, this story is also a reminder that truth matters. Silence, even when it is meant to protect, can create distance. And the longer we hide something, the heavier it becomes, not just for us, but for the people we are trying to shield. Healing often begins the moment we choose honesty, even if that honesty comes with pain. And maybe the most important lesson of all is that it is never too late to rebuild. Relationships can break, misunderstandings can last for years, even decades. But understanding, forgiveness, and connection are still possible. Not perfect, not easy, but possible. If this story moved you in any way, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever discovered a truth that changed the way you saw your family or yourself? How would you have handled a situation like this? Leave a comment below and share your perspective. And if you believe in stories that remind us what truly matters in life, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next one.